Hello, America, and to our friends around the world, greetings. Well, it's right there in the headline. Baby bonuses, Trump admin devising ways to trigger traditional family population boom. Around the nation, or excuse me, around the world, various countries are offering incentives. You have Japan opening up to foreign migration to offset their population decline. We've seen Europe essentially invaded from the south, and that's not done too well. So Japan probably isn't going to do too well in the same for the same reasons. And also the two very distinct cultures, that of Europe and of Japan, are going to essentially become extinct within a few generations of such actions. Romania is offering cash incentives to mothers, but only mothers. Apparently, they enjoy prostitution very well enough that they want to incentivize it. And apparently, that is the motivation here. Not only is it a motivation for incentivizing pay for sex, but it's also incentivizing bad life choices. Before we get into all of that, we're going to share a video clip of Nate from the Ace Nate, where he suggests certain criteria, because he makes, in my opinion, very valid points. Because this is, all right, let's track the history of this. If you're not aware, there was something called the Great Society. This came about during Lyndon Johnson's administration. He was the vice president to John Kennedy. He's the one that people have the rumors and speculations that was behind the President Kennedy's assassination. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. I wasn't alive then, nor was obviously I wasn't present or privy. And President Johnson had goals in mind, and one of them was to use not to use the derogatory term, but to have the blacks voting Democrat for 100 years, and that was the Great Society. What was the Great Society? Well, it gave us such wonderful things as Head Start. Who doesn't like Head Start? Well, a lot of people have their issues with it, and I'm not an educator. I've never used it that I'm aware of. My children went to kindergarten, they went to preschool, but I don't think they ever went to Head Start. Regardless, that's the sugar coating. That's the outside. That's the Potemkin village of what the Great Society was to represent. The reality of the Great Society was it financially incentivized, with social workers going door to door, and while the husbands and fathers were at work. It incentivized the minority population, in this case, majorly the black population, and the other minority populations also were impacted by this. But these social workers went door to door and sold them on propaganda that they would be supported by Big Daddy government if they kicked their husbands and the father of their children out of the home. This worked so well that in the mid 70s, it went mainstream. And that's when you had the Title 4D child support reform, being enacted, the Office of Child Support Enforcement, and all of those punitive uh, administrative actions being placed. That the mom is right type training programs, the continuing legal education funded by the National Organization of Women and other Planned Parenthood and other feminist ideological institutions and organizations. Then in the 90s, that was further reformed, the welfare reform under President Clinton. And this has been nothing but a continual war on getting men out of the family. And apparently, somebody's whispering into President Trump's ear to do the war on men even more. I've shared video clips of Mike Johnson on X where he was interviewed by Caitman Collins and in the House of Representatives, in the corridors, being interviewed where he's not once but twice declared war on men to pay for the bad decisions of women. Oh, we're going to get those men that are playing video games back to work. Well, Mr. Johnson, if they're playing a video game, they most likely purchased that game system and that game. And if they're playing with their friends online, they're paying for their internet. So, how about you tell your fat, lazy, bad decision making women to get off their butts and get back to work because they're actually a leech on society. While Trump spent the 2024 campaign promising cheaper IVF, now IVF, another result of women's bad decisions, desperate to have children but waiting until they are geriatric pregnancies. That's the reason behind IVF. Anyone who wants and needs it. There are further ideas that are developing to persuade women to have more children. Not men, women. So they're incentivizing and persuading women to get knocked up. We already have a glut of single mother homes. All of the stats document 100% that single mother homes lead to higher criminal incarceration, higher high school and middle school dropout and non-completion, higher teen pregnancy rates. This is absurd. Single mother homes have failed. What hasn't failed is the traditional nuclear family, the mother and father. And almost identical is the single father home. Those two groups have produced the best results. Children completing their education, children not going to prison, children not becoming becoming teen mothers, not slipping into drug and alcohol abuse, not slipping into sexual abuse. But they want to focus on women because why do something different when you can keep breaking something that doesn't work? One potential plan being discussed is for the government to fund programs that educate women. They get this already. How many times do you have to keep throwing mud at the wall thinking it's going to stick? Women are educated from at least 5th grade. That's when we had our sex ed classes beginning, talking about all of this nonsense. And if it doesn't stick from the age of 10 until whenever, it's not going to stick. You guys need to get this out. You get your head out of your bunghole. Otherwise, Cornholio is going to be like, get your, you know what I'm talking about. I need Cornholio. I need TP for my bungholio. Yeah, that's what's going on. That is the mentality of those that make this type of decision. So activist Simone Collins sent Trump proposed executive orders that would award women, not families, who have had more than 6 children, in addition to all of this women-focused stuff. Nowhere is it addressing men being part of this. All right, I promise you a video clip of what Nate from Ace Nate had to say about it, and he offers some valid opinions as far as criteria.
So before we hear from her, here's the thing. Here's what I think about this. Instead of incentivizing them to become mothers, you incentivize them to not be feminists and reject the feminist lifestyle. And here's how you do it. If you're going to give them $5,000, you got to make sure they meet some conditions. So the first condition is they have to be under 25. So that would incentivize them to do it young. And therefore, they have a lot of time after their first child to have some more. And then they also have to be married, of course. That way, it helps us get away from single motherhood, and we incentivize a nuclear family. And then the last one is, if you get divorced for irreconcilable differences, you have to pay back the $5,000, whether that be through a payment plan or whatever.
if they're going to be insistent on doing it as a sexist, bigoted plan, then they need to have punitive, conditions, criteria. Uh, let's be real. You already have. I mean, lopsided isn't even an accurate description. Currently, I have obtained the Carnell Smith Trapped by Law that details his experiences fighting paternity fraud, that it even went all the way to the Supreme Court, and it was denied without reason. His ex girlfriend lied about becoming impregnated, had a child with a different guy, hid the identity of the second guy, had Carnell Smith on child support for a decade plus. He had to fight like a freaking beast to get that undone. And no, I mean, there's plenty of USAID wet work contractors that are probably going to start getting hungry in about 6 months. I'm sure that 5 grand will take care of a lot of the problems, but that's not a problem. That's not a solution that the majority of society wants to deal with. And I can't say that I blame them, but it's a just us system. It's broken. And you can't fix something that is broken this severe because it's not a tilted slant. It's El Capitan. It's a vertical sheer granite wall slathered in oil. There's no way to get traction, no way to get a grip. No. And it's all done that way against men. Doesn't matter if it's paternity fraud. It doesn't matter if it's false allegations. It doesn't matter if it's child support. It doesn't matter if it's alimony. No, it's all punitive towards men. And that's why they're pointing it out that this is only going to benefit women because it is further based upon, ballless Mike Johnson's comments, not once, but twice, the war on men. And this is just another salvo. They really don't like us. And that's all the more reason to continue the strike. So Paul Elam wrote, Dear POTUS, regarding the idea to pay women to have children in order to address low birth rates, please remember we already pay women to have babies. It's called welfare and Section 8. All it does is cause crime and drain the federal budget by $421 billion annually. So no, it's not a good idea. And that's in addition to all the child support fraud and Great Society information I provided to you earlier. There's another one from Dr. Stephan Baskerville. His is in 2 parts. First, it is disappointing to see the Trump administration resort to the failed cosmetic policies of establishment conservatism in a futile effort to increase the birth rate. Paying people to have children has been tried in France, Hungary, and elsewhere. I may have said Romania earlier, and it meant Hungary. Uh, it always fails because it does not address the underlying problem. As long as women are enlisted or forced into the workforce, whether by choice or necessity, they will postpone families and forego them altogether. Hence the IVF, it's indirect reference to that. That is the choice, and there is no getting around it. Also, women are not the only ones facing this dilemma. Men, too, are foregoing families, though their motivations are different. They know the injustices that can be visited on them by the corrupt family courts the moment they have a child. Involuntary divorce, parental alienation, expropriation, penury, that's a money term, incarceration without trial, homelessness, and death. We either face and address these realities or stop complaining and wasting time and money on foolish, ineffectual remedies. I errantly believed Trump had more sense than this. I echo that sentiment. Dr. Baskerville, I also obtained his book recently, and in conjunction with Carnell Smith. So I'll be reading both of those and giving you guys insight on that. Let's go to his part 2. There's another account on YouTube. It is This is Shaw. He's a former support enforcement officer from California, and he interviewed Dr. Baskerville in September of 2024. It's worth the time to listen to the interview. The information that the two exchange is worthwhile if you have gone through this or are going through this or know somebody who is that you actually give a dang about and want to be able to be educated and actually offer information of value. Because everybody's like, oh, yeah, justice is blind. Well, right now on Twitter, making the rounds is justice wasn't originally blind. It was, blindfolded by communists when they took over in the progressive portion of the 20th century. All right, so Dr. Baskerville follows up. What is also foolish about this is why is it directed at moms? Is there no requirement that they be married to the extent that this can work at all, which is not much? It is only likely to breed more single mothers. This will not make America prosperous again, but the opposite. And I stated this earlier. We've had over 55 years of financially incentivizing, mothers to be single. We're going on close to actually 70 years if you include the Great Society's efforts to do this. And you can look at all of our falling IQ rates. You can look at our falling school testing scores. You can look at our failing infrastructure. Our dumbing of America has been intentional, and it's been a result of this. And this is just going to compound it even more. We do not need more dysfunctional children who are dependent on the state and taxpayers and who have a proclivity for crime, substance abuse, truancy, prostitution, and more. We need well adjusted, properly educated, and civilized children raised in stable two-parent families. All right. You guys don't seem to like me comparing Sarah Hazeldine abusing, her position to do inappropriate behaviors with a toddler at a daycare and saying that President Trump wants to reward her. But, aside from her being 48 years old, tell me why I'm wrong. I want to know, in your opinion, how come I'm wrong to make that connection? Because that's exactly the type of woman he is going to encourage should he take this woman's what was her name? The one that said that she's going to write the executive order for him. Gosh dang it. Simone. Oh, wait a minute. Simone Collins. Yeah, she's Malcolm and Simone Collins, the base camp. She's former marketing. Okay. Yeah, they have long format information, and they're pro-natalist. Unfortunately, I don't know her, and I don't know Malcolm. I just know that they present good information, and they're very focused on providing the best children that they can get out there. I would have to know what these executive orders are. I don't, as I said, I don't know her personally. I've just watched some of their work. I know that they've interviewed with Sandman, who has been in this field for over 10 years, calling out this nonsense. And yeah, so I saw activist, and I wanted, my initial was to knee jerk it, but I would still like to know what these, what are the incentives and what are the penalties? Because you can't just incentivize women to keep making bad decisions. And that's all that has happened. That is the reason that they initiate the 69+% divorces. That is the reason that they make up false allegations. That's why you have the Texas DA telling lawyers in a continuing ad, just give us the name. We'll fill it out for you and make up the charges so that mom gets custody. That's in the channel list. If you don't believe me, go find it. It's in there. You can watch it. It's about 30 minutes. Because I'm not putting out lies. They are.